We are human beings with many different sides, many different parts of our lives. We need all of them. They feed in together. One supports the other. And if we try to divide it, that's when we become out of balance.
Welcome to the Foxy Mama podcast, where creativity meets parenthood. I'm your host, Lindsay Barrasse, and each week we'll explore the world of creative entrepreneurship and business through the lens of motherhood. Join us as we chat with inspiring mamas and parents sharing their stories, insights, and the art of balancing it all. Whether you're an artist, entrepreneur, or just navigating parenthood, this is your space to find inspiration, helpful tips, and support. Now let's get Foxy Mama. Hi, I'm Lindsay Barrasse, host of the Foxy Mama podcast, and I'm so excited to welcome an old-time friend and mom of two, inspired studio, neuro coach. She just does it all. Maria Conigliaro. So let's just dive in. I know you went from being corporate world to inspired studio owner almost pretty much a decade plus ago. So can you tell me how was that transition? How was flowing into that? And what made you decide to do that? And also, what is Inspired Studio?
Okay, you got it. So not unlike you, Lindsay, I also grew up in a family restaurant. So we know that when you grow up in a family business, you learn hard work and hustle like nobody else. And it becomes in your body, in your blood, in your bones. I went to school then to become a graphic designer. And as a creative, we are constantly being asked to help with things. So I had a number of freelance clients while I was in the corporate world. And then as a creative too, I just felt like I was so boxed in. You know, I'm sitting in a cubicle working on one client, same colors, same font, same message, same audience, same this, same that for 5 years. And that just got really boring. And I got to a point where I was like, well, I'm in my late 20s. I don't own a house. I have nothing tying me down. What do I have to lose? And I decided to quit corporate and focus all of my efforts and energy on my freelance clients that I had a relationship with. And that's how I scaled Inspired Studio, which is a brand design and marketing agency.
Yeah. And I love how you're just talking about it was the same colors, same concept, just over and over again. And you're right, coming from that restaurant background, it really helps you to learn, it's a fast-paced world, right? And a family-owned business too, you really have to navigate it all. You're wearing such, all these multiple hats and everything. And I myself did the corporate world for a little bit. And I'm just same thing, graphic design, same situation. And I was just let's get creative, right? And I love the name Inspired Studio. It's just inspirational. So what kind of clients do you love to work with?
So that's interesting that you tied those two together, the name of the business and the kind of clients. Because when I was trying to name my business, it was really important for me not to have it my name because I wanted to attract businesses. I wasn't looking to attract individuals to do, postcards or invitations. I wanted to work with corporate businesses because I just love that kind of work. Brochures, newsletters, things like that. So ad campaigns. So when I was thinking about what I was going to name my business, I was like, well, what lights me up the most? And I found that I was most inspired by people who were inspired by what they did in the world. Yeah. So my favorite kind of people to work with are the ones that are just lit up and passionate about whatever it is that they do. Whether they're a nonprofit CEO, someone who's developing an app, someone who has a small business like a pharmacy or a financial wealth management company. It didn't matter to me what industry they were in. It was the people that I was most attracted to.
And did you watch your life kind of change at that point when you went from working on same colors, templates, things of that note, to being inspired by clients who are running their own businesses, doing their own things? And how did that make you feel? And how do you think it kind of reflected into your business?
Oh my gosh. Well, I know you know this feeling of just being in the flow, like in that flow state. When you're doing something you love, there's an endless amount of energy there. So honestly, I found myself working like from the second I woke up until the second I went to bed. Like I could have worked all the time because it didn't feel like work to me. None of it felt like work, whether I was traveling to meet a client or brainstorming. I found myself doing so many things for clients that were not just graphic design. You know, I was writing, I was brainstorming campaigns, I was taking photos, I was doing whatever I could because I loved it so much. I would pour myself right into their business. So that variety was very good. It fed my creativity.
Yeah. It's exactly what they say, like, you know, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. And
it
it
was
really,
definitely like that.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like work. Yes, it does in a sense, but because you love what you're doing, it kind of just flows. It kind of just happens. And for me now, taking everything and going through this motherhood journey, you know, as a new-ish mom, you know, we're 8 months in here, and being like, people are like, oh, how do you do it? And I'm just like, I don't know. I do because I love what I do and I love being a mom. Now, how your girls are 7 and 8, right?
Mm-hmm.
Gianna and Olivia.
Yes.
And what was it like having your business already established, doing all the things, and then motherhood journey? So what was that transition like? Yeah.
You know, so I started my business knowing that I wanted to be a mom, knowing that I also wanted to work. So I immediately built my business with the virtual model. I said, I want to work from home. I'm not interested in having an office space. I'm not interested in having people come and work on all under one roof. I want to have access to artists and creatives anywhere and provide that specialty. So with that forward thinking, I thought, well, I could be flexible. I could be a mom and a business owner. And I found out I was pregnant in 2014, which was only like 2.5 years after I had started my business. And at first I was really excited, but then I got really nervous because I found myself telling myself a story that I couldn't be a good mom and a good business owner at the same time. And I remember
completely understand that.
Yeah. I remember going to my SCORE mentor and just being so upset. I mean, obviously when you're pregnant, you're like hormonal. And I could remember sitting across the diner table from him and being like, I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to keep up with my business and be a good mom at the same time, but I need to work. Like, I don't know if I could get a job. I don't know what to do. And he's like, just change the story you're telling yourself. Of course you can be both. Of course you can be both. You're creative. You're smart. You'll figure it out. You'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And
I think
that really helps.
Just moms are resourceful. I think in general, whether they're a business owner or they work a corporate job or, you know, a 9-to-5 or stay at home, all the jobs that moms do, we are resourceful. Like we have, okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I set out to do. This is what I need to do. But then we also have that mom guilt on top of things. So like you mentioned, being like, I don't know how I'm going to do all this. I'm worried. Like, how am I going to be a good mom? And someone once told me, because I questioned that, I was like, I don't know if I'll be a good mom if I'm working and if I want all these things. And they like stopped me. They're like, the fact that you're asking yourself am I going to be a good mom or am I a good mom means that you're a good mom because you are recognizing like all these things, all these elements, and you want to provide, you want to be that resource and you want to set an example for your child. So the fact that you're questioning it means you're a good mom, you know?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
We do. We are resourceful. There's nothing a mom can't do.
No. And it's like this bag of tricks. Like, I just remember having like a snack in my purse once years ago and someone's like, oh, you're prepared for motherhood. And I'm like, what? And just having like these like little things that moms have or they don't think of, like a Tide pen or, you know, a wipe or a tissue in their purse. It's like this mom, this resource guide. I distinctively remember, my niece had fallen when we were on a hike and, just scraped her arm and was bleeding. And I was just like, oh, I have a pad. Like a panty liner that wrapped around her wrist perfectly and like covered the bandage. And like when we got back to the car, like we have the first aid kit or whatever. And that's resourcefulness. That's what we are. So let's segue into resourcefulness and talk about that and your business. Now, what kind of resources do you think, you know, being a mom of two and running your business and knowing that when you own your own business, it's not those set hours. You're kind of like on all the time. So what are your kind of like go-tos to kind of separate that life, like to separate, you know, kind of family life and business life and have that work-life balance?
Yeah. Want to know my trick? Yeah. Don't try to separate it. There is no separation. I honestly and truthfully believe that I wish I had a marble. I actually do. Can I grab it?
Yeah.
Give me a sec.
Commentary for the audio version of this is Maria has gotten up from her chair and she is proceeding to get a marble.
A bowl
and
of marbles.
She has gotten a bowl of marbles.
So I have a talk that I include this in. So we have this bowl of marbles, right? Now, if you look at a marble is perfectly round. It's a perfect sphere and it's perfectly balanced, right? Because it's perfect. Now, imagine we are the marble and each color inside of the marble is an area of our lives. Sometimes when you spin it, like right now, you could see that dark red. There's some more blue. There's a splash of yellow, little spot of red again. As you spin it, different things look and appear larger in this view, but they're all still there. They're all still intertwined and they're all still part of the whole. We are human beings with many different sides, many different parts of our lives. We need all of them. They feed in together. One supports the other. And if we try to divide it, that's when we become out of balance. If we can just accept and see that we're one person and at the core, we're the center of the work that we do in the world. We're the center of parenthood. We're the center of our sleep and our personal health. We're the center of our volunteering and our community giving. We're the core of literally everything we choose to do with our time. So why separate it? Yeah. Why?
I like that, the visual, right, of this marble. And as you're holding it, I can't help but think like how that marble that you were holding, like kind of looked like the earth, right? And kind of looked like how like the earth is like made up of all these different parts and we're all running together and all working together and this flow and how like the circle of life, Lion King lesson, right? Totally. As like one thing flows into the next. That's such a beautiful example.
Yes. And if you look at this entire bowl, like no two marbles are the same, but they're all perfect.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a perfect analogy for that question.
Yeah. And you mentioned that this is something that you do for, this is like a talk that you give. So let's dive more and talk about that, because not just inspired coaching. You're a neuro coach and give these beautiful talks and go all over giving lectures and speeches and kind of like these pep talks, right? Like right there was just like this boom, like it just like hits you. What made you transition into adding that like into your life, into your business? And how does that kind of play a role to where you're kind of taking your business now?
Oh my gosh. Thank you for asking that. It was a struggle for about 3 years after both kids were born, and I was doing it all and growing inspired and really loving our clients. I had my business was doing well. There was something inside that was just like, there's something missing, there's something missing, there's something missing. So I started listening to all of these podcasts, business podcasts. And a lot of them incorporated a lot of mindset and a lot of personal development and some spirituality. So I ended up going down this rabbit hole of personal development. And inside of that rabbit hole, I specifically became super interested in psychology. And interestingly enough, like when I was a kid, I was not a good reader, but I took these college classes in high school. And one of the classes I took was Psychology 101. And I read that textbook. I read that textbook cover to cover. And I hated reading. I never read a book in school. Don't tell my teachers. So I've always been interested in psychology. So then when this like personal development, business growth, spirituality kind of came into my life, like I just couldn't let it go. And it lit me up so much. And I battled with this idea that like my identity as a designer, I'm a designer. It's not okay for me to change a career path. I have a business. This is how people know me. This is how I make my money. This is who I am. But there was still something that was nagging at me. So I think it was right before COVID, I had made the decision to become certified as a neuro coach. And then COVID came and I went through the program between the middle of 2020 and the middle of 2021. And, I have to say it was a total game changer. While the world was in full panic mode, I was okay. I was totally chill. Like I just had faith everything was going to work out. I don't know how to explain it. It was actually a really wonderful experience for me. So that's kind of how, and I remember thinking to myself, okay, well, I built my business saying, I'm going to do what makes me happy, right? That's how I started my business in the first place. So I'm like, well, why can't I start another business or still do what makes me happy and make money doing it? So I changed my own mind and said, no, I'm going to stand on the platform that I built for myself in the first place. That I don't have to stay in a box. I don't have to fit any mold, that I can be creative and create something new.
Yeah. I've heard the term Renaissance women, Renaissance women, and I found this term so beautifully said, right? To summarize a woman who kind of just does a whole bunch of things. She's not just a graphic designer or just a mom or just anything, right? That term we often kind of limit and kind of put ourselves in these boxes. Because I myself have battled those things as well. I've always just done different things because I'm interested in them and interested in learning and growing and doing things. And I think that is the basis of life as a whole, is that we don't kind of put ourselves in these boxes. We don't say, well, this is what I went to school for, so this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, or I'm never going to change. A lot of things, this is how it's always been, is like a phrase that gets tossed around so much. But for me, it went from being this personality as a host, a YouTuber and everything like that. And, living in California and doing the things and coming home and working in radio and doing beer reviews, people thought like, okay, she's the beer girl, and like associated me with that and being this awesome bartender at my dad's restaurant, and like that I was going to take my dad's place over. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to make movies, which ironically, like I shouldn't say the word ironic, but growing up, that's all I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to do as a kid. And people were like, well, that's not a real career. That's not going to make you any money. Like, so that's why I went into that graphic design and that corporate. Yeah, play it safe. I'll get a degree, came out with this art, background. And I'm like, okay, well, now I'll go for business. So I got that out of the way and started doing this corporate stuff. And I was like, no, I really just want to work in film. I had this like passion for it. So then I made a bunch of movies. I made commercials and I did all the things. And then I was like, okay, like I then found myself searching for answers, going down this wellness journey, listening to podcasts, much like you. I got really into, several thought leaders, particularly like Gabby Bernstein. I did her courses and her Spirit Junkie Masterclass. And I'm like, this has changed my life. Then I did yoga teacher training, became a yoga teacher, and people like, I thought you were making movies. Now you're a yoga instructor. And I'm like, well, I'm also this, and I could be that, and an artist, and make all these things. And cue COVID, right? And everybody's on lockdown. And granted, I felt very lucky and very privileged. We had just moved. And I thought, oh my goodness, what is going to happen here? Are we going to make it? Like, how are we going to make money? Because the idea was to move to a completely new town, new state, start making money by meeting people. And how could you meet people if we're on lockdown? And it just went into doing social media and segueing into that. People are like, you're no longer doing film. I'm like, no, I'm still doing all these things, and I'm just building upon it. And I view life as that, right? Just like your set of marbles, there's all these different marbles in my life. Like, I am my own perfect marble, right? Let's say, but when you spin it, like there's all these things that are like making it. Wow. Yeah. And so going back to you and speaking and your wellness journey and mindset and being interested in psychology, you're now like giving these talks to women, women entrepreneurs, women in business, working with the local chamber where you live, and being kind of like this inspiration to many. What is kind of on your plate right now? Like, what do you have like cooking up or in the works that is along the lines of that? Because it's just, I love hearing all the things that you were doing, and I wanted.
Thanks, Lindsay. I've known you for almost 20 years now? Maybe? Yeah. Yeah. And I've loved watching your journey. And I remember seeing you as someone who was doing new and different things. And I'm like, wow, that's incredible. Like, I admired you, and I have for a very long time, for being creative and for just trying new things and putting yourself out there, because everything has like this flavor of creativity and possibility and something new and fresh. It just has like your Lindsay essence in it. I love it. So yeah.
Thank you.
Coming off of the coaching training and coaching one-on-one, I've developed a group coaching program, which I launched last year, and I'm launching a new cohort coming up in January. That this year is going to have 2 tracks, one for business owners and business leaders, like C-suite executives, and the other track is going to be more for employees. So the way I see this is business leaders can come in and network with other business leaders. Employees can come in, network with other employees, because they're going to have similar issues. And what it is a little bit of training on neuroscience, and then group coaching where there's going to be spotlight coaching. People can ask questions. go through some of the brain-based homework that I'll be giving them, and we can grow and evolve together and learn from each other, as well as being some independent study and independent brain rewiring. I'm teaching people how to rewire their brains. And what's beautiful is this work is something you can do over and over. Once you have the tools, you can use them on yourself in the future.
Yeah.
And I also became a professionally trained public speaker because I don't know how it happened, but I had a dream one night that I was on a stage and I had these big pink, like, pants on. Sounds so funny. I had like a pink pantsuit on with these big, like, wide leg pants. And I woke up and I'm like, I'm terrified to speak. I am terrified to speak. In any kind of group situation where I'd have to introduce myself, I'd be panicking, freaking out, so nervous. Like, I just want to get it done and over with. So I'm like, what is this? But then I got asked to speak. And it was at a chamber event. And I said yes. And I was like, what am I thinking? What am I doing? But it intrigued me. So then I wrote the speech. And within a couple weeks, I got asked to speak at another event, another women's event. And I was like, what is happening? So I just went with it. And I, as a creative, you know, we believe at some point, some area in our brains, we believe we can create something that doesn't exist in the world because we've done it so many times. We know that we're capable of creating something new. So I was like, well, if I can create a business, if I can create an ad campaign, if I could create all of these things, of course I can create a speech. Of course I can. So I use the neuroscience tools to rewire my brain to tell myself that I'm a speaker, that I'm comfortable on stage, that I'm confident on stage, that I have a message that people need to hear. I rewired that into my brain and I just did it. And then I did it again. And then I did it again. And then I did it again. And there's something that happens when you're on that stage and you see the reactions of people. Some people are nodding. Some people are like afraid to give you eye contact. And you know, like, this is sinking in on a deep level. Some people are crying. Some people are like smiling and they feel seen for the first time, you know? Mm-hmm. And it's just a remarkable experience. So 2024, I'm really looking forward to more group coaching programs to bring people together, to learn together, but then to use those tools to go off on their own and make a ripple effect out in the world, out in their companies, out in their businesses. And I'm excited to stand on more stages. Eventually there will be a book. Just dropping that eventually someday.
Yeah. Love the products you're hearing us chat about on the Foxy Mama podcast? Find all the featured items on my personal Amazon shops page at amazon.com/shop/thelindsayboo. Happy shopping. It's just so amazing to watch your creative journey and just all the things that you do. But exactly like you said, you're rewiring your brain because we're, taught, from a young age, like, oh, don't do that, don't fall, right? And then I hear as that adult, like, oh, but what if I fly? That famous, we'll go to the Wizard of Oz and, Wizard of Oz quote. But it's like, to rewire your brain, like, oh, I can't do that. I'm not a public speaker, or I can't put on a podcast. I do this for clients, right? And for years, I'm like, I really need to do a podcast for myself, right? And I'm just like, what would I talk about? What would I do? And it's just rewiring your brain and say, I'm going to do it. And you just start, right? So the whole basis of rewiring, let's just say, is to just start, is to just do and to just keep doing and doing and doing. And then eventually it'll be like, how was I ever not doing this? How did I ever
so that's one
think
way. That's one way to do it.
That's one way. Yeah.
That's
but see, I'm not the teacher. You're the teacher, and you're going to teach all these wonderful individuals that get into your elevate coaching program. And that's 18 weeks, right? When does that start?
That starts January 3rd. Deadline is January 2nd. I can enroll people right up until we start. The first week is going to be a video launch training. And then the second week is the group coaching live portion. And it will alternate throughout the 18 weeks.
Now, going through all the journeys and all the creativity workflow that you have done, right? How do you see this influencing your young girls as they see their mom being awesome and being on stage? Are they like, I could just see them being like, pretending to give a little talk and pretending like, look, mommy, I'm doing a little speech. I'm just like you. Because it's just such a good thing to show them and to show like what they're capable of. But kind of what do you bring into your home and lessons like your little mom go-tos to kind of bring that world to them?
That's a good question. It's one of those things where the more you learn, you wish you knew things sooner, but it reminds me of that quote. I don't know who said it, but it was, your children will not do what you tell them to do. It's something like, they won't always do what you tell them to do, but they will always do what you do. So, what we know from science, really, and behavioral science is that we pick up on our family's stuff. Mm-hmm. And almost everything that happens up until age 7 goes into our subconscious mind, because that's the way our brain is. So, we're taking on all of this data from the world around us up until age 7, and then that becomes stored in our subconscious mind. And now as adults, we think between 60 and 70,000 thoughts a day, and 95 to 97% are in our subconscious mind. And they just keep going on repeat. So what we learned as children from our environment, from society at the time, from any kind of trauma, big T, little t, anything that happened is kind of influencing our behaviors and our decisions as adults. So knowing that, to bring it back to my kids who are 7 and 8, part of me is like, I feel like a lot of pressure, like, oh my gosh, everything's going in. Everything that happens is going in right now, which makes me nervous. And I'll speak to that in a second, but we're all born with 3 core needs: to feel loved, to feel safe, and to feel worthy or enough. So not everything I do, I'm not perfect by any stretch of the word. But I try really hard to just reinforce to my children that they're loved and they're safe and they're enough. They don't need to do anything. They don't need to be anything different than they are. And I just encourage them as much as I can to be who they are. But going back to the idea that they do what we do, I really try to do that for myself too, in front of them. I really try to model, I'm enough. I'm safe. I'm loved. I love myself. I trust myself. Or I'm nervous about this, but this is how I'm choosing to look at it. So that to me is one of the biggest things we could do as parents, is invest in how we show up. Invest in how we are. Not what we do, not what we say, but our being. And our being is subconscious. So part of neurocoaching is digging in to see what did get programmed in our youth, what is serving us and what isn't, and then how can we rewire that.
Yeah. And that's what you dive in with the program and work on all things
Yes.
which is just so beautiful. And I think of it as an opportunity that people need to take and just kind of reflect on that inward journey. Because once you work out and work on and work through those things, it's kind of like this aha moment, like this beautiful release, where you feel whole. You feel like, okay, I'm just very grateful. I'm grateful for the good. I'm grateful for the bad. Not necessarily like labeling, I don't like to, I'm really working on that label, because we're so taught that this is good, this is bad.
Right or wrong.
Right or wrong aspect. Yeah. Instead of it is just what it is.
It is.
Yeah. And I love that. So is there any kind of resources that are your kind of go-to? Do you have a favorite book that has helped you through this journey? Maybe an additional podcast other than the Foxy Mama? Yeah.
There are so many. Well, right now I'm in the middle of a podcast with The Diary of a CEO, Stephen Bartlett, and what is her name that he's interviewing? I need the world to listen to this podcast. Yeah, where is it? It's with Dr. Tara Swart. It is a game changer. It teaches about brain science, psychology, evolution, emotions, so many cool things. I'm loving that podcast. The book I think that changed my perspective on everything was The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy. It's like this 35-year-old book, but it was just, it blew my mind.
Isn't it amazing? So like, I was waiting for you to be like, oh, it's like a 60-year-old book or something like that, because I've, like Think and Grow Rich, right? Yeah. Which is like one that often people go through, and you listen or read this book, and it is definitely dated.
Yeah.
It's definitely written with the male gay, like male thing in mind, but there's so many like good tidbits to like take from that. I always go back to the 4 Agreements. That is like my go-to. I think I like read that like several times a year, or like listen to it. And if you have not read this, especially like with your little girls, it's the Little Buddha's Finding Happiness. Oh. And they're like little short stories, right? About a Buddha's journey. Like, so he lives in his home and he sits under the tree and he meditates, but he's like, oh, I wonder what else is out there. And so he decides to take a journey, and he meets all these people along the way. And each one is like this lesson. So it's like great little short stories. I'm reading it. I've read it day one of being a mom, and it's so good for myself to hear. And there's like such great stories that have like these, subliminal, but also very like boom out there lessons. So that's my recommendation for you if you've not pick that up. Yeah,
I totally will. It's funny. Yeah. There's a lot of children's books that mirror entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Believing in yourself, you can do anything. Mm-hmm. You're totally unique. Don't give up. Yeah. Dream big. All the messages that we want our kids to really believe, we somehow miss as adults. Mm-hmm. But when you're in an entrepreneur's role, we need to have that mindset.
Yeah.
That there's no such thing as failure. Fall down, get back up.
Yeah. I think motherhood for me has been such a gift in so many ways, but the most profound way is that I'm experiencing life through my son's eyes.
Yeah.
And everything is like this new, wow, like, look at this. This is amazing. This is beautiful aspect, or learning or relearning, like something that you didn't think was there that you just like overlook. And now he's like really into pointing at things, right? So like he'll point at something, I'll be like, oh wow, like look at that. Like, and just I'm then like looking at it and being mesmerized and being like in it. And so much of our adult life is go, 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 go. Quick, 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 quick. Yeah. Let me get from A to Z very quickly. But we forget, you know, B, C, D, like all these like little steps along the way. And he's there being like, look, Mom, look at this small little thing that you, and I'm just like, wow, it's just so absolutely beautiful. I could talk to you for a very long time, but I have to end the podcast, and it's sad because there's so much that I want to talk about. But where can our listeners and viewers, like, where can they find you? How can they find more about the Elevate program, your social handles, all the things?
So you can head to my website at any time and book an introductory call with me if you have any questions. That's Maria Traino, TRAINO.com. And my social handles are at Maria Traino Success Coach on Facebook and Instagram, and I'm also on LinkedIn.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being a foxy mama.
I love being a foxy mama. Thank you.
Yeah, and being you and joining me on my little podcast here.
It's not little, Lindsay. Dream big. Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun, and I could talk to you for days too.
The Foxy Mama podcast is here to entertain and share general insights. Our content is not a substitute for personalized advice from professionals like financial advisors, physicians, or therapists. So enjoy the Foxy vibes, but consult the superheroes for personalized advice.